Hello and welcome to Vishnu's IAS Academy, Hyderabad, your one-stop destination for perfect, timely and systematic UPSC preparation. As thousands of aspirants are enabling their dream to become a reality, now is your turn to enroll. Like, subscribe and share our YouTube initiative, which shall keep you updated with all our current classes, discussions and notes that are being prepared only for your benefit. On that note, welcome to today's Hindu newspaper analysis, where we are analyzing the Hindu Hyderabad edition for 20th June 2025. And the first page of the newspaper again talks about the ongoing Israel-Iran conflict, how Israel has issued a warning about not stopping, continuing to retaliate until its mission, destroying Iran's nuclear arsenal, is over. US playing a very diplomatic, unclear role right now, saying that it is going to wait for 2 more weeks and analyze the situation. If US feels negotiation and ceasefire shall not work, US will come and do an active mediation in the issue. This comes as Russia gives a threat to US that it should stay away from supporting Israel and active mediation in Israel's favor. So with this diplomatic confusion ongoing, the war still rages on as both the countries are engaged in hitting at each other's hospitals and places like police stations, military headquarters. So this is definitely creating West Asia in a tough spot, with Iran saying that just today or by tomorrow it may contemplate completely closing the Strait of Hormuz. Remember, the thin passage that's key in global transportation of oil and fuel from West Asia into the Asian markets. So all this is going on the global front, and today with regards to the UPSC relevant articles, let's break down the ones which are crucial for the exam. Now here was one article that's typically coming from the local news page, but it's important because it shows the use of AI, the use of drone technology in the education system in providing safety for school children. This article says that now a drone surveillance or drone monitoring shall be used in and around most of the public schools in Hyderabad. If successful, the model could be extended to other districts in the state and to be copied by other states as well. The purpose is to make sure that within 200 meters of the school campus, are children safe? Are people breaking the road safety clause? Or are the school management in any way endangering the safety and security of children? It will also make sure that issues with regards to how safe students are in commuting to school, because cities like Hyderabad, Bengaluru and other metropolitans are facing traffic congestions near school, which also means not only are these school campuses becoming victims of constant pollution of air and noise kinds, but the safety in the light of fast speeding vehicles becomes a key thing to address. So therefore, this initiative, alongside installing many CCTV cameras, monitoring the school vehicles, the behavior of the drivers of school vehicles and the support staff in school, will take care of much safer education for children. Again, a highlight of how sometimes AI technology, drone technology has applications in civil domain, including even children's education and safety. That's a welcome change, and with this infrastructural revamp, let's see how successful is that going to be in other schools and in other districts. Now with that, let's proceed and come to the more important news events for the day. Yes, we slip to the editorial page as such. And on to the editorial page, we have a main article today that's important, and it's right here on page number 8, The Hindu. It talks about how in today in the Indian diplomacy scenario, in the Indian foreign affairs and diplomacy domain, there has been a very strange development that we are blaming the messengers rather than the people who are sending out messages. The article starts on a very literary note. It highlights something from the play of Shakespeare, which says that in a very famous Shakespearean play on Antony and Cleopatra, it was a quotation which said, "Shoot the messenger," which means do not punish the person who has been responsible for creating the problem. Punish the person who is bringing the bad news to you. That's a paradox. It doesn't show the right attitude towards problem solving. It says in India right now something similar is happening. We are blaming the External Affairs Ministry. We are blaming all the ministers who are going and attending India's diplomatic meets with various countries. We blame them for having failed to convey India's foreign policy in clear and explicit words. They are being criticized that they haven't been able to convey the message to other countries about India's anti-terror commitment, about India's non-toleration of Pakistani incursion. All these things we have not been able to communicate properly. But the problem is not about the messengers. The problem is about the lack of clarity within the government itself. The article begins by saying that right now India's diplomacy is facing criticism across the globe. Why should it happen? What was our mistake? That we launched the Operation Sindoor? What did the global community expect? That India would run to the UN or take help from US to mediate where its citizens died in the Pahalgam attack? Where did we go wrong is what the article asks. What can we do to achieve the same respect in global diplomacy which we once used to enjoy? So the article talks about the Operation Sindoor, saying that previously also some such similar things have happened. Remember the Mumbai terror attack, where so many innocents lost their life. Let's talk about the Pulwama attack. Whenever these incidents had happened, the global community had supported India. Where are the examples? Right here. It says that earlier, whenever India had experienced a terror attack, then the global community was giving condolences to India. We were getting support, unequivocal support. It means equal support, unquestioned support from all communities in the world. Not only including our supporters like countries of Israel or Japan, but we also got condolences from the globe over. Similarly, back in 2016, there were so many countries such as Bangladesh, Bhutan, Afghanistan and Sri Lanka who supported India's decision of staying away and not participating in the South Asian Association of Regional Cooperation Summit in Pakistan. Why? Because we had experienced the Uri attack in Kashmir and these countries helped us. They said you don't have to participate because we are showing solidarity with you. You have been wronged. Similarly, back in 2019, there was global support to India when India had forced China, by given logical reasons, to support United Nations Security Council's decision to call openly Jaish-e-Mohammed chief Masood Azhar a terrorist. That happened. We got global support. Similarly, back in 2008, when very sadly there was a cowardly attack in Mumbai created through Lashkar-e-Taiba terrorists. That time also India wanted international favor, support for what it was suffering, and the global community did that exactly. Yes, at the United Nations Security Council, people from Lashkar-e-Taiba were clearly declared as terrorists and Pakistan was called out and Pakistan was included in the FATF, the Financial Action Task Force, grey list. Grey list means a country that finances terror, on the defaulter list. But this time things have changed. In the past we have such a good record, a good history of getting international support whenever we have experienced Pakistani or non-state actor financed terrorism. Today what went wrong? After the Pahalgam attack, how things changed suddenly that we, rather than experiencing global support, are seeing newer colors by the global community. IMF going and giving loan to Pakistan. US coming and welcoming Pakistan's army general. US saying that let's mitigate in the Kashmir issue. After all, it's about Kashmir issue. It's not about only terrorism. US not supporting Multinational companies to expand their trade in India, US not negotiating any improvement in the tariff conditions placed on India. Why? Why this anger from the global community? Why this lack of support? That's what the article says. Is the problem that government is lacking a clear agenda, or is it correct to blame the messengers that they cannot convey our message correctly in the global community? That's what the article says. So the article is saying today for the first time, Pakistan is receiving complete support from China, Turkey, Azerbaijan, Malaysia, and other associates of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. Pakistan is securing diplomatic victory, despite the fact that Pakistan is known for using terror to achieve its national policy targets. Let's remember April. Pakistan, which is a non-member of United Nations Security Council, was able to create a manipulation where the blame of Pahalgam attack was only given to NSA, non-state actors, terrorist groups. It was not given to the resistance front that is within Pakistan. How did they manage? It's because of global support. Second thing, the TRF, the resistance front, was completely in support of the terrorists in creating forceful incursions of terrorists in Jammu and Kashmir and coordinating with them to attack innocent people. But why was it not blamed? When it has taken responsibility for the attack, still it was excused. Why? Because of support of global community. Is this not a diplomatic failure for India? Similarly, the most shocking thing happened when recently Pakistan became the chairperson of Taliban Sanctions Committee. How funny, how ridiculous that Pakistan was made the vice chair of the Counter-Terror Committee at United Nations Security Council. This is an abject failure of global community. It's an abject failure of diplomacy. Pakistan, despite India saying that the same money that you give Pakistan for financing its economic needs goes into using weapons, expanding nuclear capacity, stockpiling, blaming India and then attacking India. All that money is going into killing innocent people, and yet, despite our request, Pakistan secured a good amount of bailout, a good loan at the International Monetary Fund and Asian Development Bank. Now recently, yesterday I have spoken about it, how the US government has welcomed on a lunch Pakistani Army Chief Field Marshal General Asim Munir, despite the fact that he was never a person to support and show condolence for the Pahalgam terror. Is that the value of Indian lives and Indian diplomacy? The article is asking that. It says that in July, Security Council President said that we will try to schedule meetings to solve Kashmir conflict between India and Pakistan, and it also said, US said that Pakistan is willing to talk to India. Pakistan is willing to negotiate with India. India kept trying to ask the global community to make this organization from Pakistan. The resistance front of Pakistan. India kept saying put it in the grey list. It wasn't done. It just was not done. That request was not taken care of. So therefore, what is the failure? India's diplomatic messages or India's foreign policy? Now, another very interesting thing happened, that Donald Trump now is saying that not only US but other countries should also try and mediate on the Kashmir issue. He says that after quite a long telephonic conversation with our Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, he said that I have met General Munir and General Munir is willing to negotiate with you on solving the problem very peacefully. Does that mean we are trying to negotiate with terrorists peacefully? That's what the article says. It says again there is a problem that when you talk about Operation Sindoor, just after Operation Sindoor was launched successfully by India, many delegations from India's parliament, members of our parliament, went to about 32 countries. They went to the US, they went to other nations, and they had a very high ministerial level meetings with not only other senior officers of India but also the External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar. He met the quadrilateral dialogue, of which India, US are key members along with Australia, Japan. He met the foreign ministers of the Quad. He met the leaders of the BRICS committee. Several diplomatic missions were sent to European countries, and after that also we have not been able to get more unequivocal support for our Operation Sindoor. which means no government with whom we have met has really been ready to criticize Pakistan openly. None of them have been able to say clearly that Pakistan is wrong. It has to be highlighted as a terror-mongering nation. That means the diplomatic initiatives of our Ministry of External Affairs and the missions, they have not been convincing enough. That's what the article says. It also says, therefore, that no matter how much we are trying to get support for Operation Sindoor, there is a lack of clarity this time. Maybe it is about the shift in geopolitical structure altogether, and India's perception is not now what it used to be just 10 years before. That is why Pakistan is able to draw this support system. Similarly, it is becoming like a new normal. New normal, our strategy. Our idea, one, non-tolerance of terror. Secondly, supporting a good relationship, creating a good relationship with those countries with whom we have a great trade relationship. But getting their support into terror issues have also not worked well for us. Now, India says we are not going to bow our head. We are not going to accept defeat if somebody gives us a nuclear blackmail. Just because Pakistan says we have a huge stockpiling of nuclear weapon, and the entire area now, entire subcontinent is facing a threat of a nuclear tension. But still India says, I am not going to get scared, or we are not going to bow our heads. India today clearly says we are not ready to create a differentiation between Pakistan and NSAs. What are NSAs? I have spoken about it, non-state actors, which a country says are not my part. But we can't deny that they operate from Pakistan. United Nations also says that under Charter 51, that if a country feels threatened with terror, it can take an action against either NSA, non-state actor, they are independent terror groups. But if a country is using their territory to support NSA, then that is also equally involved in terror. You can take an action against that. Then why today are we being blamed for attacking Pakistan? That the article says we do not understand. Then it also says that if at all we experience any other escalation of terror, then we will respond just like Operation Sindoor. That's what India says, but Pakistan is not ready to have any kind of realization. It is again threatening India with a nuclear warfare in case India launches any other attack on Pakistani terror infrastructure. So which means that we as Indians know that Pahalgam is an evidence of Pakistan links to so many other terror organizations, but have we been able to prove it? No. Has the global community understood that there is a difference? When we say NSA and Pakistan are not different things, they don't understand that. Today also global community thinks the attack was done by NSAs. Pakistan was not directly involved. What can we do about that? Now we are living in a global situation where India already has a difficult dynamic with Bangladesh. The recent political upsurge in Bangladesh. We no longer share the kind of ties we used to share during the times of Sheikh Hasina. We already saw how the trade links are being closed. Maritime boundaries are suffering. Trade is coming down. Then in that case, that is an uncomfortable relationship. Similarly, given China's domination of the South China Sea, whatever is going on in Ukraine, the world is in an uncomfortable position. Recently, a report highlighted that after the Second World War, this is the first time the world is in the most unstable situation ever. Now, with these situations and with Israel and Iran war capturing most of the attention for the global community, India is doing whatever little it can from its side to maintain its stiff and its independent global policy. For example, support for Russia, not voting against Russia despite Ukraine conflict going on, trying to support as much as it can, encouraging Israel from stopping the war without criticizing Israel in direct terms, supporting the victims of Gaza tragedy without saying that it was Israel's deliberate initiative to hit at Iran and the residential areas associated. So therefore, no matter what today we say is our diplomatic call, no matter how many places we send our messengers to, the main thing is Indian government is also locally, which means domestically, in a tough spot. Questions come about Kashmir, Article 370, separate constitution. Question come about why internet is banned every time there is a issue or there is a fight that happens within a state, for example, Kashmir. Why is media not allowed to exactly express what it feels it should to criticize the Indian government? What about transnational killing that's being blamed of India's involvement in the transnational killings in US and Canada. So all these today, even citizenship, minority rights, all these have put India in a very difficult situation. So the article says, let's see, let's continue to be secular, let's continue to be pluralistic and multilateral. Let's see how developments take place, but indeed it's a difficult situation to be in. But what we should understand is, rather than blaming the messengers, let's just keep thinking how to evolve our policy for our own benefit. That's one clear message given by the article. Now another article is from the page number 9, that's on the opinion page, quite a repetitive one but quite important as well. We talk about delaying the census. The 2021 census will now come in 2027. Reason? COVID-19 pandemic. That it wasn't happened, and after a huge gap, 2027 will now see the data from census operation. But people are not convinced. The problem is that a lot of opposition parties and a lot of individuals, they are raising a question that, was the census delayed deliberately? What vested interest will the government have if the census is delayed anyway? As per these opposite parties and as per the claims of the opponents, they say that the census was delayed because a population expansion has been happening in certain states that are ruled by the governing party, particularly North India. They say that by delaying the census, they made sure that the population in these states increases because they have a higher total fertility rate. How will this help the ruling party? It helps the ruling party because the delimitation of seats happens on the basis of population of a state. So the more the population of the state, the higher its representation in the parliament. The more the population of the state in which ruling party is ruling, the better chances of the ruling party to win. These are certain claims that opposition parties are claiming, saying that the reason was not COVID pandemic, it was government's own benefit. That's one thing the article says. Now, it also says that because the census will lead to delimitation, another very big problem is that, as I said, many states feel a bias. They feel that by reducing population, indirectly they have also reduced their representation in the parliament. So they are unhappy with that. They say, do not take population as the only criteria for giving seats in the parliament. It is very unethical, it is very bad. It's against the notion of population control and economic development. Now the article is saying, what are some other implications, consequences of a delayed census operation? Well, one could be that population growth patterns like internal migrations. After COVID-19 pandemic, another big group has increased in India. That's a group of internally displaced people, IDPs. Their population has doubled in number just because of the COVID pandemic. There has been consistent internal migration from state to state, more from the North Indian states to the industrialized South Indian states for employment. There has been a total change of urbanization. Fertility policies have changed. For example, certain states like Southern Indian states are witnessing negative fertility rate, while in most North Indian states, fertility is still either the average or higher than the average, which means existing policies are now outdated. Social welfare policy is already outdated. We cannot apply it to the vulnerable people anymore. Population policy outdated. Urbanization schemes outdated. Safer reproduction for women and nutritional schemes outdated. Education schemes outdated because population has completely changed, but the schemes are still continuing. Does that mean after the census all schemes have to be recreated, despite the fact that they are all recent, some of them? That's a problem. Another problem is that vaccine coverage is a major problem. We are doing missions like, there's a very famous mission that talks about vaccine. That is Indradhanush, Mission Indradhanush. For example, it is trying to make sure how many children and women are getting vaccine on time against preventable diseases. Now this is an outdated assumption because today, since population itself has changed, how do we know who are our targets who have to take the vaccine? So many people have already missed the vaccine because of delayed census. Public distribution scheme, plans of giving 100 days guarantee employment like Manrega to the poor people in the village, they also have completely now become out of place. So the delay in the population estimation means neither can we do any disaster management planning in advance, nor can we depend on these social welfare policies anymore. Every time we have to spend more money and create a new social policy to help the ones in need. Now, this is the first digital census in India, remember. 2011 was the first paperless census. This is the first digitized census completely. Benefits are there, yes, because results will come faster. Human error is reduced. But there are problems as well. Problem is that those people who do not have any technological reach, there are segments who are victims of digital divide. Rural Indians, tribal Indians, illiterate poor Indians. What about them? They have no digital access. Will they be not covered in the census? One problem. Second problem, those people who work in the informal sector, how will you capture them through a digital data estimation? How people who have no stable electricity, no proper broadband, no proper smartphone will participate in this census? A very good example could be the data which says only 33% of rural women in India use internet. How will you capture them in your census? The digital first approach will not help until all citizens are digitized. What guarantee that this will not lead to gender bias and bias against the poor? Will the data be inclusive? We don't know. That's the confusion. Second thing is, for a census to be successful, a door-to-door approach is important, especially in geographically remote areas and villages, mountain regions. Now, the people who collect this data have to be exceptionally trained in traveling to these locations, communicating in local languages. Will technology take care of all that? Will technology capture regional language demands? We don't know whether it will. Without human engagement, will the data be accurate and reliable? We don't know. That's a question. Second thing is that if we are trying to make sure that this data and the National Population Register should come at the same time, so that we know the number of minorities and we know the number of people who are, say, Aadhaar card holders. That also becomes a problem, because if both happen at a different time, then how will you create a uniformity in estimating who are the refugees, who are the minorities, and who are the Indian citizens, local domestic Indian citizens? That's a problem. Similarly, it also says that what about caste data? The problem is that already the 2011 census was called as the socio-economic and caste data. In that, 40 lakh caste identities were captured. Based on that, we have a reservation policies. Based on that, we have a social welfare programs. But in this digital data, will it be possible to capture such minute caste and subcaste details, given that India is a very unique situation? India is not like other countries, deeply divided on caste, religion, linguistic lines. Will the data that is digital be able to capture such diversities and vulnerabilities? That's again a question asked by this. Will people honestly talk about their caste on a digital format? Will the lower caste agree to calling themselves a lower caste in the digital format? Will some people from minorities, from conservative segments be ready to disclose their information? Again, that's a question we are asking. So there is a bias in the data perhaps. So overall, if at all the census is so important for a country, not only its welfare planning but also allocation of resources to the states through Finance Commission, better policy coordination for Niti Aayog, then a digital data is a little too early introduction for a situation like India. In India, maybe a regular census could have worked for us. And later, as 100% coverage happens in terms of digitization, we could have taken this approach, it was better. Plus, delays are dangerous. In a country where immigration, birth rate, death rate, emigration and industrialization patterns are changing every 5 years, rather than making census happen exactly every 10 years or sooner than that, creating a gap of 15 years is very dangerous for our demographic outlook. That is also what the data, the article says. Now another article on the same page, I will not take it in detail, but it just says that when you talk about aviation sector where so many accidents are happening, in that case we not only need we need to talk about a sufficient policy that prevents accidents from taking place, but we have to make sure that we do some kind of a contract, some kind of a linkage with NGOs, social the public or socially, the civil society groups really which are working outside of the government, activists, researchers and lawyers who have an expert knowledge in social causes. We should also use their expertise in addressing problems like aviation accidents when it comes to preparing in advance, or when it comes to creating awareness before taking a flight among people, passengers, and also to manage disaster in case disaster actually takes place. So it's talking about creating a more inclusive democratic approach by involving NGOs and civil society organization in disaster management, whether it's aviation sector or any other sector which is prone to accidents. Now, another piece of news says that already students are reaching now New Delhi after being rescued from Armenia. Armenia, the country where students from Iran were able to reach by crossing the border into Armenia, and from there they were airlifted safely to India. So as many of these students are Kashmiri, they are reaching Kashmir and some of them Delhi, all thanks to Operation Sindhu, which means rescue operation of Indian students. The data says still many are captured there, whose parents are coordinating and asking for help. But sadly, they are still caught up in active war zones. So government is seeing what it can do to protect them. But today they are showing immense gratitude towards uncertain situation, and still Indian embassies all out effort to help and rescue them, making them come back home. That is one small news here. Now, with that, the Manipuri conflict between Kuki and Mighty community is ongoing. There are deaths and killings we are seeing every day. Some people are claiming, why doesn't the government go ahead and create a broader emergency there, a president's rule there? So how the situation evolves, we are yet to see. And these were typically the most important news items for the day. And yes, as India is making a delegate visit to the UK, we are trying to create more deeper trade agreements with various countries. Suppose countries including the UK, Australia, UAE, and also take advantage from the European Union in terms of European free trade agreement and countries who enjoy some trade benefits with EU. So all this is being done to close better trade deals, because India-US trade deal is right now in danger because of the ongoing unsolved issue of the tariff and of course the little diplomatic standoff that's going on. So that was all for today's Hindu. The article on the science page is slightly too technical to be taken up really for GS paper 3, but should its application come in the news, we'll talk about it soon. With that, thank you so much for being with us. Do like, subscribe and share the channel. Allow us to engage with you on a daily basis on all the important crucial affairs. So thank you and all the very best.